But I'll always be proud of the time that you and I spent cleaning up Eglinton during the garbage strike.
Thank you again for coming, George. Mark Philo, Green and Clean out of Guelph, and what we're going to simply be doing is reminding people that middle of April, there was hundreds of people lined up for jobs at Canadian Solar. I don't know the last time that there were hundreds of people lining up for any kind of job in Guelph. Company I'm with, 3 people, 2008, 18 or 19 right now. Go Solar, Estel Energy, Sustainable, just go through the list of them. Unfortunately, I'll be doing this for the Green Party, but because we do support it, but thank you for the opportunity.
Oh,
but go out and
nice,
support everybody.
That's nice, but it's not strategic.
Yeah, my simple response to people in Guelph is strategic voting. How did it work in May? But we really
actually, there wasn't strategic voting. The NDP vote came up, and Conservatives were elected as a result. And the same risks apply in this coming provincial election.
But thank you.
And with Green Party supporters especially.
Hi, George. I really enjoyed your speech. You did a great job. I just wanted to address, everyone's talking a lot about how to build the whole solar energy segment. And I think a lot of it just comes down to how you build any industry with the marketing, getting the communication out, getting people excited. And anything that, like, I'm not sure within this industry how much money is actually being spent on advertising and promotion, because it seems like within the industry everyone's very knowledgeable, but the average person really needs things spelled out to them to really buy into it. So, you know, I agree with what you said about the air quality. It's a big sell feature. There's a lot of key points behind solar that really consumers would love and would buy into if they understood it more. So I think whether everyone in the industry is doing solar or whether they're doing solar advertising on behalf of their own business, that's going to build the consumer demand for it. It really has to come down to traditional marketing, you know, who's your target market, what's your key message, make it simple, make people believe that it's possible for them, because I think a lot of average consumers, it's too technical, it's too difficult for them to understand. So it has to really come down to the key sound bites that you had mentioned, and getting that buy-in that people don't think it's necessarily just too expensive and not possible. So the more money that's invested in that, in the advertising and, you know, doing newspaper ads or even doing a collective agency ad, I think would really help the whole industry to kind of push forward and get more consumers excited around it. And, you know, I agree that Twitter is really key, or any of the social media that's being used. So
I'll make the one comment, which is I think that in some ways, like I mentioned before, is feed-in tariff came to life, created kind of like a claim staking, goal, you know, kind of a rush, emerged to be a lot of players with billions of dollars of reservoir for investment, and the capacity of an industry to speak at, to kind of be able to punch at the aggregated weight. I still think we're waiting for that. And I think that part of the struggle has been that the primary organization or vehicle for that is not focused alone in Ontario, even though in a Canadian context, Ontario's pretty much where the play is. I think it's getting better, and I think that the only point I want to make is, well, two things. It's not everyone can afford to be a big contributor to a big advertising campaign, but everybody has power. And a lot of times we look to the person to our left or to our right, and we assume that they're exercising the power. But actually, for success, we all need to exercise our power. And for people that have resources, they can do that. Financial resources, they can do that one way. But everybody's got tools at their disposal, some of which don't have to cost anything, but can be extraordinarily influential. And, you know, don't underestimate, you know, Obama's campaign and all the credit on social marketing, all of that opportunity is available. And because green energy has a hook that is emotional and has an audience, youth, you know, the opportunities here are huge. And maybe I could just close on this. Youth don't vote. It's a great, we have great angst about it. Why don't they vote? We navel gaze and we have organizations that are focused on it, and we run special advertising campaigns during election and rock the vote and this and that. But at the end of the day, the participation rate amongst young people is low. What do they need? Motivation. Well, this issue is a motivator for them. It's about their economic future, their environment. It's values oriented. Maybe some of them, maybe their parents are lost because they figure that going back to coal would be cheaper. But for every one of those that's lost on that account, there is a youth who is, I think, ready to be inspired. So if you're thinking, you know, if I've got you thinking about, okay, well, what power do I have here? You know, maybe for some of you older folks in the room, you're finally working in a sector that your kids have respect for. I don't know, I'm not sure. And maybe they like a certain standard of living, and maybe they also have 162 friends on Facebook who have, by extension, 10,000 more. And maybe if you found one place in Ontario, the place where you lived, where 10 or 15 or 20 youth got oriented around the same thing, making the election a referendum on whether there should be a green economy and fresh air, maybe you'd actually find that you had the capacity to ignite in one riding, the kind of effort that could decide the fate of that riding. And maybe if more of you did it, you'd find that you have more power at your disposal than you know. These are some thoughts that I'm privileged to leave you with, and thanks again for the opportunity.
George, this has been truly inspiring. Thank you so much. And, you know, I'm pretty inspired already, but you've taken me a further level, and I'm going to take your call to action about not waiting for the next guy, and I'm going to ask everybody here to commit to one thing, or maybe two. And George, I'm also going to invite you to something. Here's what I'm talking about. Anybody here ever write an op-ed to a newspaper? Raise your hand if you've ever written an op-ed. Okay. I'm asking everybody in this room to write an op-ed about the importance of the solar industry, the Green Energy Act, and the decisions being made in this election. If you can't write yourself, we will have a ghostwriter write the sound bites, the issues for you, okay? Now I'm going to ask again, anybody in this room willing to write an op-ed or have it written for them on their name with their approval in the coming months, raise your hand. Please raise your hand. All right. So you'll hear from us, and we're going to see a lot of articulation. I'm appalled by how much of a lack of free voice we have. And I'm sure if the newspapers, local, national, are getting op-eds and inundated with them, they're going to publish quite a few. And those can get passed on Facebook and other ways too. So here's a very inexpensive way we can mobilize and take George's charge and call to action. The other thing I mentioned earlier is that in the US and in Mexico, they have a day which is the solar tour. It's usually the first Saturday of October, where you tour around and see different solar facilities and open people's eyes to the possibilities. So this year, it is October 2nd, right before the election. And long ago, I bought solarweek.ca. And Solar Week in Ontario, maybe in Canada, the Solar Week is going to be September 26th to October 2nd. And I want to ask everybody in this room, are you willing, is your company or you individually, are you willing to organize something, some event, and we will help you, we will support you, where the story will be told about what's happening in solar, where either something that your company has actually brought to fruition or is bringing to fruition. And I wanted to see a show of hands, are you willing to participate in Solar Week and do at least one event to participate in one event? So please show of hands. All right, I forced you to. Yes. And finally, George, I want to ask you, Solar Week needs a mayor. I want to know how many in this room nominate George Smitherman for Mayor of Solar Week. Raise your hands. All right. We'll negotiate. So thank you, George. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, Carrie, for your wonderful introduction. Thanks, Chris, for your response. Thank you all for being part of this